And hello everyone! Today we are back with episode 20 of our ComputerCraft series. This time we are going to continue working on our retrieving data from the network system. A big word for it, but it's kind of what it is going to do. One is backup, one is active. That will read the wireless network 24/7 and write all the information to a file on which a second or third or fourth PC will do its magic from there. In that way, I hope that we will receive all the messages from the wireless network and not lose information in the process. Last time we looked at the end of the episode through a few of my older scripts, and we did find something useful. At least I think it was useful, and that was actually what I used back in the days. I think by now back in the days is well over 3 years ago, actually from April 2015, where I copied this from. Just a simple piece of code with a file, FS, file system, and from there open. At the time this was for storing error messages, but we are going to change that, and then a small a at the end indicating that we are going to add a line, and then this is just file.write. This was pretty much your timestamp, and then the message that you had to write down, and at the end it will close the file once again. So pretty solid, not that sustainable if you're using this in the real world. That would mean if for some reason power was lost during this action, the writing action, then your file would actually get corrupted. But I'm pretty sure there are some ways around it. But I'm not going to bother with that here. The chance that it happens is just so small, even in the real world. But again, that would mean that either our server, actual server, where our world is running on, would lose power, or, which is a bit more likely, that we would stop the server, the Minecraft server, at just a really awful moment, right on this moment that he is writing. And another thing would be an in-game event that would destroy the computer at this exact moment. All of those are three accidents would happen, but the chance that it happens is just so slim that I'm at least not going to bother with it. So let's transform all of this in something that we need or can actually use. We are still going to receive a message, and this is going to be on the disk / what shall we use? Wireless data. That's all I'm going to do. And what we are going to write is not that weird. It will just be the message. That is a small m here. But before we are going to do all of that, I'm going to check if the message is actually a string. Since that needs to be a string in order to write it down in the file. So if type of message equals string, then whoa, this is an old piece of code. You can notice that I typed this inside of ComputerCraft in a really old version. Since at that time a tab was just 2 spaces, where today that's pretty much 4 spaces, which is interesting. And I'm also not sure if this will always be the case, actually. A double dot there. Now let's assume that this always works. I think it would be really odd if it doesn't. Edit disk / what did we call it? Wireless data. And let's just save that and exit. So it is there. The file system should otherwise make the file itself. Now we at least know that it is there. And add error is not appropriate here. Write to disk. Write to disk. That makes a lot more sense. So we can actually comment this out. We are not going to need it. And we can set up our main loop, which will be a while loop. While to loop. It just needs to be always running. And we are going to read from our modem. It's going to be an input. It's going to be equal to os.who event, which will be specified to a modem message. Modem. We could leave that out and use an if statement, but again, an if statement costs a bit more time. We can specify input local input equals some sort of a table. And from here we do our conversion, of course. So, oh wait, we will actually receive this as a string. We can just write it down. We don't need to do any fancy stuff with it. So we did brave.write to disk. What is that we want to write? I believe that's input 5. And that should at least write it down. A bit curious to see if it works right away. Attempt to call nil at line 20. Which is, oh, we missed a typo. We made a typo. It can happen. At least it's running. It's still running. Now I'm going to get over our previous sending setup. So we have at least something to send more information to. It did send something. This one wasn't running. Let's actually make sure that it has been sent. It has been sent. Let's get back over here. Kind of the behind the scene thingy. Right. It didn't stop there. Let's edit disk wireless data.lua. That's good. Maybe not the .lua on the end. Yeah. It isn't nicely in a particular nice format. I was hoping to see all of this within one line, so it would be a bit easier to work with. Which clearly isn't the case. Okay, how are we going to fix that? Yes, that is a rather big problem for us. Because I think if we want to load all this information, we kind of need to know how long what the version the info tag would have been. If that was just one value, then we can just scan an X amount of lines and use that as that was one message. What I hoped for was kind of this, and it was all in one line. And for the compiler, if there's a compiler at all, that would have been the same thing. And that would make our life a whole lot easier, simply because it's all in one line. You just need to load, for example, the first line or the last line or so forth. That might make everything a bit more difficult. This is also no comma on the end here. That could actually be implemented in the send info API. That will always end with a comma. Or is that to... we can add that to the end. That will at least make it a separate table. To send capital S equals to send dot then comma on the end. That will at least add a comma at the end of the table after all of it is being converted. It should also be ignored if it isn't necessary, so we should technically be able to do this. So in the future we will be able to read it in a nicely fashion. It was definitely not what I was expecting to find. Let's see if I can actually find something useful for that, just to show it. What I was hoping to find. So we are at least receiving everything. That's good. We are still receiving stuff while we are reading stuff. That's even better. It's now just a question on how are we going to do something useful with this information. Let's try just some stuff. Let's give this one a label. Set read data and an ID, which is ID number 91. Edit a small file, save it, it will show up in Explorer, and there we have everything once again. Check, yeah, find drive is there, and the write to disk function, including this one. This one clearly has to do something else. Also, it won't find a modem. This can be excluded. These are not necessary. The drive is not that important. And in this one, we are just going to read from the file that we just made. So this is not needed. I think instead we're just going to make all of this. You're going to need to input at some point. Will be handy. Get rid of that. Get rid of this. Add a sleep in the end for 1 second. We can tune that a little bit. Oh, let's actually do that up here. Sleep time equals 1, which will be 1 second. It's all in seconds, not in milliseconds. That will at least sleep once. And now comes the interesting part. Most likely I have something for that as well. Since loading information from a file was something I did a lot back in the day. Mainly for screens and that sort of stuff. I usually save that as a table, which was handy to load. And this was the API I was looking for, or the function, which is the load. So we have something to write, and we have something to load. A load, which is the name. That will be the name that we, from the file that we want to load. Here is an R included, which indicates that we are going to read. We are going to read from a file. And then we will get the data, which is done by file.readAll. That will return a table to us. Then we are going to make this into an unserialized data part. We don't need that. We really want it as a table in this case. Usually it was needed since we were only writing stuff that's inside of a table. So this time we are just going to return it as a table value. Not needed anymore. And let's try to do some stuff with this. So let's see, input equals grave.load disk / wireless data. That should return everything in a table format. I'm just going to check if that's correct. Print type on input. And if that isn't the case, then we will see that soon enough. It's a string that get back. Okay. First thing. Unserialize is. Let's check that in the code. We can see that. Serialize is going from a table to a string. And so we did need this unserialized thingy. Okay, interesting. A nil. Okay. So something is messing up the table that we are receiving. Let's terminate this one. It did generate the information, that's good. And let's add one comma here. And here on the end as well. So that's what we will be doing in the future. Maybe that have messed up something. Nope. Show that again. I'm getting back a nil, which is not good. There's something somewhere is something going wrong. Did we not specify the correct name? That can happen. We have a wireless data, disk / wireless data. Wireless double S data capital D. Yeah. That's what we did. This is the file. It should return everything. I'm actually going to edit this and delete the upper part of it. Because I think somewhere along the line I did mess something up by placing all of it in a single line up here. I'm not sure, I'm just suspecting it. Apparently not. Can I actually open, edit, disk / wireless data? You can open it, okay, so that's good. And it did save the change. That's also really handy. But it's just not liking what it is receiving, which is quite weird since we are not really doing anything else than what we have already done. Oh wait, it can make sense since some parts of the table are still strings. Maybe it's getting a bit haywired over that. Let's actually return the data here. Data. And we load and feed it straight into the send info. No, I mean the convert info, which should be in the end a table. Convert info. Okay. Let's load. brave.convert info. This is getting really creative, but maybe it works. Okay, we messed something up. That's good. Attempt to index a nil value, which is inside of our info here at this line. So something got messed up during this first unserialized action, which returned a nil, which is exactly what we got back earlier. I'm going to think about that, since we are kind of out of time, and this does need a bit more head work from my side, so sorry about that. Once again, it's going to be a cliffhanger. Next episode we are going to play a bit more with the turtle, leave this to our rest for 1 or 2 episodes, and then we will come back to this, since it's not really necessary to have, it's just really handy to have this kind of stuff working. We do have our trusty monitor anyway. That's going to be it for this episode. I hope you have still learned something or laughed about all my struggles. That's up to you. But I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.